sets we drew because we knew where we were going with those, what we were going to do with those sets were the interior of Tom's SRO building, his room, the hallway, the bathroom, the entryway downstairs where the reception is. And then, believe it or not, we did the Queen Elizabeth. We did 2 decks of the Queen Elizabeth, Tom's stateroom, and let's see, corridors, haberdashery on the ship. We drew all of that and then never built it. So that's where we started. But
It was
yes,
good practice.
yeah, good practice. We got the art department going.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but his room is one of my favorite sets, I have to say.
Yeah.
And it was quite wonderful. We were working with, we had 5 art directors, 2 supervising art directors, 5 art directors, 4 art directors, and 5 assistant art directors. Or was it the other way around? At any rate, and Tom's apartment was drawn by an art director who had worked with on Catch-22, Brizeda, and it was so wonderful because it was a world that she wasn't familiar with, right? And that myself and Karen were very familiar with. So kind of watching her understanding of grow of what the aesthetic had to be
Right.
was really great, really, really kind of a wonderful challenge. And I'm really so happy for her that it's almost first up in the series,
Yeah.
and a lot of people kind of talk about it.
Yeah. I think it just sets up his character, this lonely man, sitting in his room at his typewriter and like the wires. I mean, the dressing is minimally fantastic, I would say,
I know.
because
You
every
know,
pattern.
as a designer, I'm always trying to sort of keep things as simple as possible and not to draw attention to myself. But those electrical wires and cords were in a piece of, reference photo.
Right.
And like, it's the real thing. I've got to do it.
That's always the best when you find a reference in your research that's odd and you're like, did people live like that? Did they live with that
Yeah,
cord right there, like right over their bed? They probably get electrocuted at night or something
right.
like your toe. But yeah, and I mean the smallness of it, and she's got these to me, and not really seeing it when I watched the series, but going back and looking at these screenshots, which is this, and then when he moves to this,
Yeah,
and it's still pretty, it's bare bones, but what a
absolutely.
difference,
Yeah,
instead of having the 2 pictures up on the wall, he has this magnificent view. Like how he has psychologically gotten himself there is crazy. And,
yeah.
conveying that through the design of it is so
And
great.
you show those 2 pictures and you realize like it's a whole kind of leitmotif in the series where Steve keeps you keep coming back to similar images in similar, I mean, the shots of uh Tom at his typewriter in I don't know how many different hotel rooms,
Right.
apartments, pensione. There are a lot, and it's kind of a beautiful thing where you kind of see him growing, and Steve accentuates that by, having similar frames
Right.
and compositions that where you keep seeing him in the same activity.
Yeah, the framing of the shots, I mean, the DP and everything it's so magnificent, and I do love that there was a lot of wide shots. So always like keep it wide.
Yes,
Give
I
it to it.
mean, I do have to, again, I have to thank Steve for that, for caring so much about the world that he envisioned, that we then created for him, and then he documented.
Yeah.
It's pretty gratifying.
Oh yeah. This, I mean, I would have to say, like when you see your work like this and it's so expansive and shot so beautifully, it's like, oh, all of that stress was worth it.
Yeah, no, exactly. We did it all for a reason. Hey, I have to correct myself. I said that all the New York interiors were shot in Italy, but that's not true. The bank in New York, we shot in what was a New York City bank in Brooklyn, with a lot of work from construction and paint and really wonderful decorating by Stephanie Bowen. Stephanie
Beautiful.
did the New York portion of the show. And then Italy and all of New York and Italy was Alessandra Quizzola, who I've done 3 projects with now, who's just brilliant. And by the way, the set, first when you brought up the room there, built, painted, um, in Rome, and all of that set dressing came from a container. It came in a container from New York.
From New York.
Yeah, so
Nice.
Alexandra's pretty, you might be able to tell, detail oriented,
Oh yeah.
as was props, as I happen to be, and as Steve definitely is. So, uh,
Well,
you know,
I should have put his apartment next. I
yeah,
didn't. Then to go to this apartment, to this
right.
he's taken over this other personality and this grandness and everything. And this this is a build. I'm
This is a bit. This is on stage at Cinecittà, and it's on the same stage as Tom's SRO apartment, and only separated by a green screen in between the 2 sets. But yeah, so the whole apartment was built on stage, as well as the landing outside his door. And then the bottom of the landing, where you see the elevator, but more importantly, the bench with the cat.
yes. Well,
And
that's
that was on stage as well.
I one of my bigger questions is how many staircases did you scout? I mean, look at I
Yeah,
mean, they're all beautiful, but
yeah.
it's all about him looking down this staircase. And I was wondering, did you put in those pieces? Was this
No, the exterior of Tom's Rome apartment, the entryway, Signor Buffi's office and little apartment there, and the stairwell with the cage elevator were all the same building.
what a find.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a
Uh, this
design.
is after a lot of scouting. The
Stair
thing
scout.
is, we wanted an older building. Certainly, you know, I mean, this palazzo is probably from, I'm going to say, the um, 1800s. But so all the buildings of the vintage that we wanted um, weren't built with elevators. So we had to find a building that we loved, where at some point an elevator was put in, and a cage elevator at that. So a lot of these buildings, the older buildings, had elevators, but not necessarily cage elevators. I don't know. It was a long search, but this building was kind of perfect.
It's beautiful. I didn't even think about that, how the elevator was put in later.
Yeah, yeah. So right. So you had to have this sort of,
Right.
uh, you know,
You have to put all those.
this construction of a stairwell, and yeah.
Oh,
Uh,
this,
yeah,
this I love because this concept of putting like the morgue, but
yeah,
see people while you're coming down the
yeah.
stairs is
We
so
took I'm all into authenticity. We took a great deal of liberty with this. Um, because there it sits,
yeah.
exposed to the elements.
Yeah.
and I don't know if you have a picture of once you're in the morgue itself, as decrepit
Yeah.
and aged as could be. But this building is a former hospital built in the 1930s under the administration of Mussolini. Fantastic piece of architecture. It's called Ospedale Forlanini, and it was a hospital to treat patients with tuberculosis. In this same, and the only reason we ended up here is because in the same building we did the interior of the Naples train station.
Oh.
We did the police offices of Naples, Naples, and San Remo. We did the Bank of Palermo on the same building. And to that end, I also used this building for the Palace of Algeria in Catch 22, as well as uh, the um, the hospital beds, a room of hospital beds for the California Anaheim Hospital in Catch 22.
There's so many times when we talk, or like when I go or you go to a location and you're like, oh, this can work for this can work for this. But really it's the walls are standing, and then all of us have to do so much to
Yeah.
get it to what it is. It's really like the convenience of the shooting crew getting to do all of these things in one building, or the, location budget. But the work for us isn't minimal to transform these spaces. I mean, that's a lot in one building.
I have to add two more sets to that.
Oh,
The dentist office, as well as the peculiarly 19th century chiropractor's office.
oh God. Yeah, you've used every room.
Yeah.
You shot it out.
So it's a great location. And so we were first, we were there really mainly to do the Naples train station. But I kind of knew that the room adjacent to that would work well for a bank, and we had, several banks to do. And so, this was just walking around the hospital with Steve, the location with Steve, and we came upon this staircase and was like, come on, how can we not?
Yeah, I mean, it's so crazy how wide it is, and then being able to have that space below to perfectly
Yeah.
fit this
And
this
again, I have to say, beautifully dressed by Alessandra, which I think, in a way, when you're down there, saves it, because all the elements are absolutely real. There's no reason to believe that
yeah.
it's not being used for autopsies.
Yeah, it's completely believable. It's it and I think too, being like a dumb American of like, oh, is that how they do it in Italy? Like they just you know what I mean? Like sometimes you just believe it. Hey, well, that's how they do it. I don't know. That's what they're doing over there. I don't know. So it's 1960. Maybe they were out in the open. I don't know.
Exactly. They did what they had to
Yeah.
do.
They had bodies coming in. I don't know.
And that one was irresistible. So,
Yeah, that's another. I mean, all of the shots too, and the framing,
yeah.
like, and then this is the hotel, which
Yeah. So, this is as scripted, the Hotel Excelsior, but
wow.
this was a typical challenge in the making of the series. The exterior of the hotel was actually the Hotel Hassler. The lobby of the hotel was the grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel, and Tom and Freddie's suites were a private residence, the Palazzo Rispoli,
Oh
which
wow.
is sort of in central Rome. So it was like every hotel we did made up of different parts. Every train station made up of different locations and parts. And So much so that kind of early on, you have that big production meeting before you start shooting, and there's, in this case, I think there were 100 people in one of the big stages around, this huge arrangement tables, and the first AD, Pete Durrell, had a question for me about this hotel, about the exterior, and all of a sudden your brain is like a Rolodex and you're going through all of the hotels and what we finally decided. And it was kind of like every location.
Right. Right.
In fact, we're talking and I have my notes all around me because
Yeah.
you're going to ask me a question
Well,
and I'm going to
how
have
many,
to remember.
how many, I mean, I can't, I don't know if you could count how
We
many.
had about 200 sets and locations.
That's crazy. It's amazing. Well, it's amazing that that is becoming sort of our standard
Yeah.
especially in limited series. I mean, I've been talking to a lot of people. I've done limited series. This is what it is now. We're doing, 10 or 8 movies per hour. And
Yeah.
it's the quality is so unbelievable. And, I think like Netflix or like an FX, like people who really get behind the crafts, it shows. And I think like this is just, all of the locations and everything in your builds, it's just giving you the time and hopefully the money to do it. So that's always it.
It's great seeing all these pictures, I have to say. What a treat.
Oh my gosh. I
They
when
sent
I
you a
was
nice package.
when I was putting this together, I was like, I can't put every photo in there. You know what I mean? I got to narrow it down. but I mean, the simplicity of everything that working together in the black and white, and then all the details that you can pick up is just so phenomenal in the series. It was just, is this a build?
No.
Is this a location?
Uh,
You had that great, they looked out to the water there. So I guess
yeah.
yeah.
And so our two, I would say, our two greatest challenges initially were, I guess we had plenty, but what we were focused on from the very beginning, from when I first started back in November of 2019, and when Steve joined me, and then not having resolved it when we got back in January of 2021, was Dickie's Villa, which we never, I don't know why, but anyway, we never contemplated as a build. And the town of, in the novel, it's Positano, but Highsmith has another name for it in the novel. Starts with an M, I'm not going to remember. But it's basically the Amalfi Coast.
Mm.
And we looked all over Ischia, we looked all over Prakoyo, we looked up and down the Amalfi Coast, and hadn't decided when we were back what we were going to choose. And because Dickie's was a big sort of set to get going on, even as a location, we kind of needed a decision there. And so we started again up and down the Amalfi Coast and landed on the small town of Atrani, which we both loved. I mean, we loved because I know it looks very picturesque. I think it looks very picturesque in the series.
Oh yeah.
It's not one of the more famous places like Amalfi, Positano, Ravello. But it's actually right next to Amalfi. You can literally walk there from Amalfi to Atrani. It had a great simplicity. It had a great sort of part of the upper road that travels all up and down the Amalfi Coast, which we needed for the bus arrivals. It had a great sort of window from the piazza out to the beach and the ocean. And it had, one of the best collections of stairs.
Yes. I didn't even put those in. I forgot to put those in because
Yeah, those
all
steps.
I kept thinking with those stairs was, oh man, I hope this wasn't real. Like, I hope the thing wasn't up there and the crew had to take all their shit up there.
Oh, they did.
Oh,
They did. And actually, Marge's exterior, her interior we built on stage, but Marge's exterior was like literally at the top of a tranny. It's like you take one more step and you're in Ravello. Um, and I do feel for the crew, but you have to appreciate because
yeah.
all of the journeys that each one of the characters was going to take in any number of those sequences had to all be identified and all had to be, you're dealing with mailboxes and doors and,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
lines and everything
Yeah.
that have to be taken down or adjusted. So for every one of those steps that you see in the film and that the cast and crew had to manage.
Oh,
You can imagine how many times, first of all, Steve and I in the locations department traveled up
oh,
and
yeah.
down. And then art department and set decoration had to travel around up and down. So yeah, it was the price we all had to pay.
Nobody thinks of that but us. But so nobody's watching it thinking like, oh, I bet the
And the
crew.
way Tom looks when he gets about halfway up the stairs,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's how we often felt ourselves.
Were there um were there specific things you wanted in Dickie's world that you designed but then, made different for Tom?
Hmm.
Like to me, it's so wide open and it's so
Yeah.
he's
You,
like a
you know, both in oh, and by the way, Dick, just a little side note, Dickie's villa was actually not in Atrani. Dickie's villa was in
oh,
Capri.
oh,
And
making it work.
Steve had spotted this location like from the other side of the marina when we were there. And he said, look at that. Should we be looking at that? And that's how we came to find this location and shoot at this location. And by the way, this is all the way at the bottom of the steps. So this was an easy one to load in and out of, or relatively easy one to load in and out of. But you have to, as a designer, I have to realize that both Dickie's um, villa and Tom's room apartment are places that they're renting. So places that come furnished already.
Right.
Um, Tom doesn't add much new at all to the Rome apartment, save for Dickie's painting setup and a ashtray.
Mhm.
Um, and in Dickie's villa, we kind of assumed that he was buying art along the way, not just the Picasso, but
Right.
art along the way. So that there's a lot of art hanging in his villa, not all of which would have been there originally, as opposed to Tom's, which is outfitted with some of the most spectacular
Yeah.
painting, history of Italian painting.
He the artist studio that Dickie has is so
Yes.
good too. It's a beautiful set. And with the sofa in the background and like how that plays in some of the scenes. And I love that set.
Great.
To have
What
that,
about
like,
what about
it's
his
like, oh my God, it's
personal?
like a dream. Like to have like a little painting studio in Italy. Like how great is
Yeah.
this guy's life? Like,
No, and the paint. I have to point out the paintings because in the Italian tradition and in most of the European tradition, the set decorator has their own construction team and their own paint team. And all of those paintings of Dickie's were done by one of the scenic artists
oh,
uh, in Alessandra's department. And I thought they were just spectacular. Trying to create bad painting, which is believable, but true to character. is a really hard thing for any painter to achieve. And we did a lot of research. I pulled a lot of naive painting, both American and Italian as reference, um, uh, and Valentina, who did those paintings, just did a spectacular job, I think.
It's
And,
hard to be bad
at the
sometimes.
same time that she did that, she also did the two unfinished Caravaggio paintings
Oh,
in Caravaggio's atelier.
yeah, that's
So,
beaten.
yeah, she had to
Wow.
reach deep into her childhood self to create Dickie's paintings.
I read in one article that you found a chair like that in walking around and you liked it and wanted that sort of chair, which is so commanding in the room of like this
Yeah.
smoker's chair.
Steve wanted a leather chair, and they're tricky, right? Because you think of the kind of French
Yeah.
leather armchair, which is too small. And so I don't know. Alessandra brought a lot of chairs for Steve to see and Tom to sit in, but we weren't able to get the one out of the shoe store that I spotted on Via Coronari, but we came close to it. Alessandra did.
Yeah, it
And
is
this is,
hard.
adjusting the seat
Yeah.
and the seat itself and the usual.
Making sure the actor doesn't sink into the seat and he's
Right.
still like that happens all the time of like, oh, this chair looks great. And then I get it on set and I'm like, it swallows you when you sit in it. I didn't even realize. Like, can
I'll
we get
tell you, like I do with all of my sets, or let's just say whenever I can. I scouted a lot of palazzi that had turned into apartment buildings just so to understand scale and detail. And this particular set is based on two palazzi that I really liked a lot, both on the same street. And in fact, one in the building that we used as exterior and stairwell for Tom's apartment. Um, but when Steve saw it, he said, "Gee, we kind of laid the whole thing out on stage in tape and folding chairs and tables and all that, set it all up." And Steve said, "I think it needs to be a little bit bigger." I said, "Steve, it's really big, and and it's really sort of authentic."
yeah.
And Steve said, "Well, you know what? I kind of imagine Inspector Ravini is going to be, for his first scene there, he's going to be walking all around the apartment. And, I just want him to be able to move wherever he wants and whatever kind of flow." And so we made it 2 feet wider, I think 4 feet deeper. And come the day they shoot the scene, Ravini walked in, sat in that leather chair, and never got up.
Of
So
course.
all it meant is that Alessandra had to find a few more paintings and a little bit more furniture to kind of fill up the space.
Yeah. Oh, best laid plans always come through. It's always yeah. There he is. Sorry, I
There
forgot.
he is. There
Forgot
he
I had
is.
that. Yeah. Never got it. Yeah. Beautifully set though.
Yeah.
It's like a
He's fantastic, isn't he?
yeah. Oh, he's
All
great.
the Italian actor is amazing, but
And especially that ending scene of
uh,
like the discovery is just fantastic and like that
pretty
light bulb.
brilliant.
Yeah.
That is Steve. That's not in the book. That is all Steve, and it was the perfect way to conclude the story, I thought.
I wanted to ask about this set because
Yeah.
like the one-on-one of him talking to the camera and the way that it's designed and composed to me is like this man is so important but isn't like he's like he apparently has all this money and everything but he's like sitting at like a smaller desk and like and I wanted to talk about the decision of this of
Yeah.
his
Originally it was written that Mr. Greenleaf has a kind of beautiful wood paneled office upstairs from from the warehouse. And we scouted a lot of locations for that. And then I took Steve to this location, which we had already earmarked for the work, where they build the boats. And Steve said, I think it would be really interesting if he was just down there with the draftsmen and the welders and the, carpenters where they're building the boat, which really kind of reflects Dickie in a way also, right? Doesn't it? Because um, Dickie has all these things that Tom aspires to. He has that great wealth, he has that amazing villa, but what he also has is sort of not disdain for those things, but he's casual about it. Do you know what I mean? He's so at ease with who he is,
Right.
that he enjoys all of the benefits of his great wealth. But what he enjoys most of all is, his ability to kind of live with it in such a casual way. And so that's who Mr. Greenleaf ends up being in this version.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's such a choice. Like it's such a, you could make him like this father, like when they have the dinner with the mom and everything's sort of more posh and everything. But this is like, oh, he's like this, he is a working man. Like, and yeah, I just thought it was beautiful in the
I
depth.
don't know if I said that, made that point correct, clearly, but anyway, you get the
Oh
idea.
no, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, you did. You
Feel
did.
free to edit.
I like that he has an ashtray there. Maybe he kills people.
Yeah, who knows? He could be, he could
Yeah.
be responsible as well. We had, the first scene where Tom meets him for the first time at the warehouse. I think initially Steve was going to shoot the scene there, at the desk where we see him there, which is really his office. But then Steve got the idea of just moving the desk into the bigger space and shooting it like this, like he did with the bank manager in New York,
Mm.
the bank manager in Naples,